Good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to the latest session of the Cloud Advocacy Program at nasscom. Today's session will focus on the role of government in technology adoption, both as a consumer of technology and also as an enabler. As a rising global power, technology and talent have been India's biggest strengths and differentiators. This combination has enabled India to create innovative solutions like Aadhar, COWIN, UPI, DigiLocker, etc., that are not only impacting every individual citizen, but today these solutions are also being adopted by other countries. And India is setting global standards for leveraging the power of technology to define India's next growth trajectory of becoming a trillion-dollar digital economy. We have a stellar panel of leaders today representing the government sector, the PSU sector, technology side of business, and also consulting. Between them, they have enabled many of these technology solutions that we use. Before we begin, a few housekeeping rules. All of you will be on mute for the duration of the webinar. You may post your questions in the Q&A window anytime during the webinar. Please do not use the chat window for your questions. Please also mention the panelist you wish to direct the question to. We will have a Q&A session if time permits. And once this recording will be uploaded on our YouTube channel in a few days, and I will share the link with all of you. To take this discussion ahead, I'm very happy to invite Kesri Asthana, Principal Program Manager at Microsoft. He has over 2 decades of experience in regulated industries in India like government, BFSI, and telecom. He has worked on some very prestigious government projects like Ishram, Diksha, Swayam, etc. He is also an author, and he's recently published the book Cloud Architecture Demystified. Welcome, Keshri, and over to you.
Thank you, Diksha. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to the panel. The way that we will go through is we will be going through the questions, and I'll be introducing you on the way when we'll be asking the questions to you guys. So I'll first jump to the question, and I'll start with Ganesh sir. So Anantraman Srinivasan Ganesh has 2+ decades of enriched experience in various markets and industry verticals across consulting, technology, operations, and products. He is currently the CEO and Managing Director of NSC IT. In his erstwhile roles, Ganesh was Cognizant's Vice President and Country Head of India market and was part of various global leadership teams. He had multiple leadership roles at IBM, driving digital business analytics, cognitive and cloud adoption across industry verticals. He has also worked closely with IBM Research and IBM Software Labs to explore and leverage the adoption of new age technologies to address business problems. Ganesh is a member of Regional Council for nasscom and CII and is regularly invited as an industry speaker in various forums. So Ganesh, the first question that I wanted to ask was, how has the world's outlook towards India changed in recent times? And what can India do to further its digital leadership in global arena?
Sure. Firstly, good afternoon, Keshri, and a very warm good afternoon to all my fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be here. This query comes at a very opportune moment in that there are so many high points that India has notched up in these last few days that we are aware of in the global arena. So I think fundamentally, my own view of the world is that India has actually by leaps and bounds moved forward on the digital adoption. In fact, as we kind of talk to multiple customers globally, not just in India, but in markets like US and other mature markets, we realize that there are very clearly many areas in which we have taken the lead. I mean, what comes to my mind is clearly areas like payments, where our maturity is far higher than most markets across the world, and all of these have happened in rapid time. So if you see the acceleration in the adoption of technology in this period of timeline has been phenomenal. One is that we have had the advantage of not having, I would say, too much of legacy as compared to many other mature markets. There has been a lot of legacy, and therefore transitioning from that legacy into new age technologies adoption kind of coming up with digital platforms and all that is always a challenge, and you have to navigate through that transition. But in many ways, because of the way we have kind of embraced and become digitally native in many scenarios, I would say we have kind of taken a leap over there. Let me illustrate this with probably one example where we have worked very closely with the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office to the Prime Minister of India. And this is an initiative called Manthan, which is a platform for basically bridging and collaboration of the industry with the research and development ecosystem. And what's unique about this platform is that this initiative was always there from a government standpoint for ages. But with the launch of this platform last year during Independence Day, we have suddenly accelerated the ability for multiple entities in this large ecosystem to be interfacing with each other. So on one side, you have the supply side, which is all your incubation entities, ecosystem, academia, and multiple entities who are there with solution for problem statements. On the industry side, you have multiple problem statements, and these have been actively adopted by central, state governments, even private enterprises and all of that. And when you kind of reflect on it, it basically facilitates collaboration at scale. And these are the kind of initiatives that are taking momentum. This is just one example. I see as we work with multiple regulators in the market, there is a lot of adoption for grievance systems, so on and so forth, because at the end of the day, the digital technology adoption should go and matter to the people on the ground and the citizens of India. So digital adoption for all its nicheness and all of that at the end of the day is impactful when it matters to the common citizen out there. So my view of the world is that we have been able to fast track that. Our infrastructure is going progressively, it's maturing, and with all of that falling in place, and when we were in conversation just yesterday, other basic infrastructure of 5G adoption and all that will only facilitate and accelerate that motion. So I think we are very well on that trajectory to kind of really make these technologies matter to us and leverage out of that in a big way. So I think those are my few thoughts, and I'll take a pause at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ganesh. Introducing Brajendra Kumar. He is a partner at KPMG and has over 19 years of government consulting and IT implementation experience with a focus on government services transformation. He has extensive experience in IT-led transformation in the domains of information technology, land records management, urban infrastructure, water resources, and labor management. Brajendra leads the government technology practice in India and has advised central and state government clients on large-scale IT transformation projects. Some of his key clients include UIDAI, Income Tax Department, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Labor, and MeitY. And we also call him very fondly as Bridge in the industry. So Bridge, the same question. What is your view on how the world's outlook towards India has changed in recent times? And what can India do to further its digital leadership in this arena?
So thanks, Keshri, and good to be a part of this August panel. I've been hearing Ganesh and Skisser and ma'am in multiple forums, and good to be sitting in with that in their presence. Quickly on one good thing about being in India, and I feel very proud about it, the kind of things that we have been able to do in the last decade or so. So I won't say it's an immediate and something which has happened in the last year or two, but almost everything started at population scale when we started with with UIDAI. That concept itself was novel. Nobody believed in the first place that at this scale it can happen. And once that happened, I think we started believing in ourselves that, okay, this is something, if we can do this, there are so many other things. And then this entire innovation journey started. And, Ganesh has mentioned UPI, COWIN, DigiLocker, and then the variants of it, Diksha, Govt, UN. I mean, it's just ONDC. There are just so many. And where I see, and I've been, in discussion with multiple, KPMG entities across the world and the UN entities, and somewhere there's a lot of excitement, particularly in the space of DPI, because from an application, when we move to platforms, and now from platforms, we are moving to network. And that is something which even advanced countries, and when I say advanced countries from a technology perspective, I don't think we are anywhere behind. But they are looking up to us that how do we actually are delivering these innovation at population scale. And this is something which many others can simply go ahead and adopt. In fact, we ourselves are talking to multiple countries to taking Diksha and for that matter, overall the UIDAI platform, which is primarily coming from MOSEP. And then there's a large scale digit implementation that is getting discussed. So for the first time, maybe India has got so much to offer to the larger world, and we are not simply taking it and adopting it, what has been done somewhere else. So I think that's one story of pride that we have.
Thanks, Brich. Sorry, Rama, ma'am, you had dropped, so we will move to the next question for you. So Rama Devi Lanka leads the Emerging Technology Wing of Information Technology, Electronics and Communication Department, Government of Telangana. Her role is to formulate and execute policy frameworks that would create a conducive ecosystem for growth of emerging technology in the state, build infrastructure of excellence, and assist the government in leveraging these technologies for better governance and in improving services delivery to the citizen. Prior to joining ITE&C department, she was Senior General Manager at National Institute of Smart Governance and was involved in a number of e-governance projects that were crucial in bringing in reforms and transformation in various domains such as health, visa, immigration, civil aviation, etc. She was also involved in implementation strategy of Meghraj policy for the cloud for the Government of India. So Rama ma'am, the question to you is that while a lot has been accomplished so far, we still have miles to go with respect to tech adoption in various government ministries and departments. What change management is needed to achieve this? How can technology enterprises be able to partner in this journey? Those are two questions that we wanted to ask you, Rama ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Keshri, and apologies for some technical glitch, In fact, I joined 15 minutes before to avoid any issues, but still, you never know how technology works. Well, yeah, thank you, Keshri, and in fact, a very good afternoon to the audience out there and panelists. You're right, while we have done a good job so far, we still have a long way to go. In Telangana, the way, we are working is we do have a very structured approach. We come out with policy frameworks for each of these technologies, and the twin objective for this of our emerging technologies thing is it develop the entire ecosystem for these technologies, as well as accelerate the adoption of these technologies within the government, So the second point objective, which is relevant for this particular question is, how do we do that? Again, it's a structured approach. Like number one, for each of these new technologies, what we do is we conduct awareness workshops, capacity building exercises. We go to each department and do this. And when we do this, we actually involve all the stakeholders from the industry, from the experts and so on. That's number one. Second, we actually do a brainstorming exercise, with different departments to identify use cases for these technologies, and I, since handle only emerging technologies, my focus will be only on AI use cases, related to AI, blockchain, cloud, robotics, and so on. So we sit with the departments, brainstorm the use cases. Since they're also part of these discussions, they actually own it, sort of buy-in. We get this buy-in from them. So once we identify the use case, we actually implement as a pilot in each of these departments. So again, it's actually, very close collaboration with the department. So they really understand what's going on, what are the advantages, what are the challenges, what are the benefits. So in a way, they're also part of this, So once they see the benefits, then the next stage is scaling up. Of course, for this, they have to budget, and better planning is required as you're scaling up across the state. So this is the overall approach that we adopt, to accelerate adoption of these emerging technologies within the department. This is the answer to the first question. Coming to the second question, how can enterprises be technology partners? In all of these initiatives, all of these, activities that I mentioned just now, It's not that a government does it alone. For each of these technologies, we engage with industry partners, academia, wherever they're relevant, foundations. And just to give you an example, we are working on a project called IRAS, Intelligent Road Transport, that aims to reduce accidents. It's again AI devices that we have actually put on vehicles. This is with Intel. It's an enterprise. Second, we are working on a project called Sagu Bagu. It's a value chain transformation of a particular crop. This is in agriculture. We are working with a foundation called World Economic Forum. We recently launched a data exchange platform for agriculture. Indian Institute of Science is our partner, which is an academia. And with startups, we have a whole range of solutions that we are implementing across the government. Yeah, Keshri, this is how we,
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So the government already has a role where you have the enterprises and academia already participating, and this participation is actually at the end really helping the citizens and the focus of the main activities and the design as a technology guys. I also want to introduce Chandrakishore Prasad sir. He is an executive director and head of IT for Railtel Corporation of India. CK Prasad sir achieved a YOY growth of 25% in income for southern region, covering 6 states over 4 years in a row. He spearheaded the Digital India initiative to design and deploy the largest public Wi-Fi network, covering 6,000 plus railway stations across the country. He was instrumental in design and construction of Railtel Hyderabad data center, infrastructure and Tier 3 design and facility certification from Uptime Institute, USA. He was instrumental in design and build of 5 green edge data centers for deployment of edge cloud in Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Vizag, and in setting up the Security Operations Center and COE for cybersecurity in Railtel. He also played a pivotal role in design and build of the first optic fiber communication network in southern India. So CK Prasad sir, probably the same question, like while a lot has been accomplished so far, we still have miles to go from a government and as a country that we would want to really achieve. And what change management is needed to achieve this, and how can technology enterprises be able to partner in this journey? What are your views on that, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Asthana. Good afternoon to my esteemed panel members and all the viewers who are hooked to the session. I would like to just let you go back and say that the definition of broadband, which TRAI came up, was only 256 kbps actually to start with. And in the National Telecom Policy, they revised it to 512 kbps, whereas the broadband in other countries vis-a-vis, let us take South Korea, for example, or US, for example, was 2 Mbps. The broadband is defined as a 2 Mbps interactive medium. So in our country, because we didn't have the infrastructure, so it was defined like that. And now the infrastructure is picking up, and we have the telcos and like companies like Railtel, Power Grid, BSNL have deployed a lot of fiber across the length and breadth of the country. But still, there is a last mile challenges, which has to be the fiber reaching the home finally, because the fiber is only medium which can give you broadband, and it is a scalable medium actually. Of course, it is also very reliable and cost efficient in terms of, and that is how the cloud has been enabled for everybody because of the connectivity part. So on investments are happening from the various organizations, the government, also the telcos are doing on their own side, and 5G also rollout is coming up. So I think that is going to address that further penetration of the broadband in the country. Of course, the digital public clouds and also the private and the government community cloud, what we have deployed, we are able to roll out various applications. Like, for example, we did for AP Sar Shiksha Abhiyan for all Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalaya. We rolled out smart classroom with digital content and adaptive learning, which really improved the total pass percentage from close to 65% to around 85% in a span of 1.5 years. We rolled out, Railways being a parent company, And being the largest public sector enterprise in the country with around 12 lakh plus employees, we rolled out the digital workspace solution on the cloud. So our strategy was to go with cloud first approach, and that has helped us in really doing a lot of pilots, as ma'am also pointed out. So we also do a lot of pilots before we try to roll out at a larger scale. Of course, the change management is extremely important, because the way we have been working manually, or the way we work on paper-based systems, or the processes which are very circuitous processes, to refine the processes, refine the business process, or refine the workflows. It's extremely important to bring efficiencies in and productivity gains in that. So there'll be a lot of understanding has to be really brought in. Everybody has to be brought on the same page, and that's why the stakeholders, it's very important to engage all the stakeholders right from the beginning, and has the buy-in from the top management. And of course, the training of the staff is extremely important, and listening to the people who have got issues or they have difficulties in doing it, and hand-holding them is another part of it, the process itself. And we also try to see people who are IT savvy, bring them the champions, and then try to bring them on the board on the project management team as additional responsibility. Definitely, it's difficult to get exclusive time from each of these people who are working on their different areas. And that is how we are able to manage that. Of course, the partners are extremely important, because the partners have to understand that when the rollout is to happen, it has to happen in phases. And then the day the procurement, the supply, the deliveries also has to be done in phased manner, because once the order is placed by the ministry, they expect the results to start flowing in from day one, and which is really not possible unless until you put all the systems in place. And this, because you have to do extensive, as you know, in the IT systems, right from the modernizing infrastructure to rolling out the applications, and then testing, and then you have the test and development environment and production environment, and those from day one itself, or day two, I should say, start doing patching of the let us say the hypervisor or this thing, because these days of so many patches, software patch, OS patch keeps coming. So entire team has to be, ecosystem has to be kept ready. And I find one gap on the skill side, which in the government especially, because we cannot outsource, we don't outsource 100% because of the various constraints. And we have to train our people and then retrain them, upskill them. So those are the areas which we try to handle the partner ecosystem. We also try to have a hybrid team, that is from the industry, the partner, or the SI, system integrator, their team and our team, they work collaboratively towards the various activities which are there to manage the IT services and the security of the enterprise.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Ganesh sir, any views that you have on this, about the accomplishments, and how do we partner enterprises? I know NSCIT works very closely with lots of enterprise partners, but yeah, any views?
No, absolutely. Like Prasad sir rightly called out, I think a couple of things are very essential, right? One is, with the emergence of technologies and what we are trying to achieve across, the skill aspect of it is extremely essential, because the gap in skill will limit our ability to accelerate, right? So our dependency on that factor is extremely critical. The good news is that I see multiple initiatives happening across state and central governments to kind of bridge that gap. And I say this because one part of our business is working very closely in that context. So for instance, we work with the Ministry of Skill and Development in the context of ITI vocations and all of that. And we have conducted just in 1 year 21 plus lakh examinations for DGT as an entity. And that gives you a sense of the scale that is being kind of, because irrespective of whether it is cutting edge technology or fundamental vocational aspects of technology that are required for basic sustenance and livelihood across a diaspora of people, right? I think skill is extremely critical. And it becomes all the more complex because with technology getting obsolete at the pace that it is, what you learned or studied about 2 years back is no longer relevant. So I think I couldn't stress enough the importance of that. And all of us are grappling, frankly, when there is a, when we just came out of the COVID phase and when programs started picking up across the globe, there was a significant dearth of skill sets available in the market. And that was very pronounced in that you had, a huge supply demand gap. And that basically creates an imbalance which is not sustainable, essentially. So that's very critical. The second factor, which I think again was alluded to by a few of my earlier panelists, is the fact that India is unique in the context of its volumetrics, right? So when you look at our volumetrics, it's unparalleled, right? Whether you look at, the market infrastructure from an exchange standpoint, when you look at derivatives as an area, we have been clocking the highest number of volume of transactions year on year, right? If you look at entities like State Bank of India, I mean, from a public PSU standpoint, the number of captive customers are the probably among the top two, or next to ICBC or entities like that. So the volumes are phenomenal. I think Bridge alluded to UIDAI, right? We work with them in the context of looking at managing digital identities for 1 billion plus users across. So I think that's the second biggest factor, right? So whatever we do has to be fit for scale, right? I mean, all of those things that we deliberate and we kind of put into real scenarios and use cases has to be cut out for scale, which is unparalleled, right? High throughput, low latency, all those kind of scenarios. And I think that is another aspect which makes us extremely unique in what we kind of do. And I remember this passionately because in my past life, I have been kind of espousing this to global MNCs to say that, look, you can't view it in the same block, and the volumes are unprecedented. And if you get this right, you can actually become a reference template for any part of the world, right? So I think those are some of the unique aspects. And I think once we kind of bring all that together, create a much available skill pool and all that, I think it's just a matter of eventuality that we will be right up there. But yeah, those are the things that we need to navigate, and hopefully the digital infrastructure or also parallelly keeps up in pace, as Sir was calling out, because that is what's going to fuel the next wave.
Thanks, Ganesh. We'll move to the next question. And Bridge, DPI is generating lots of interest around the globe, and it's also becoming being forecasted as becoming backbone of India's economy. And this month, even the G20 digital ministers have proposed a framework for system of for the DPI. How can India, with its own success stories around DPI, help other countries to adopt this?
Okay, Shri, and thanks for this, because this is one very interesting field, because we need to understand, how does this DPI ecosystem work? And I, very consciously mention ecosystem, because if you look at it, DPI per se is not one solution or an application. And what it has is the building blocks. And just like a Lego block, you can, create multiple solutions using specific pieces of those blocks. You actually can make multiple solutions using the various building blocks. So if we talk of Sunbird, it has got Ed, it has got CQ. And that's where the impact comes, because we are not saying that, say, let's take an example, Sunbird. Now, Diksha is a very big, important, success story of this, but does not stop there. Now, you use the same platform and take it to skilling, use the same platform, taking to health, this entire training of health teachers or the, at the ground workers happen on the same platform. So what is happening is that we are getting something which we can trust, because it has got actually implemented, and now we have got confidence that this particular block can be used. But it also gives you that entrepreneurial push that something is there available to be simply taken up, and we can start creating more solutions around it using those building blocks. Now, there are certain obviously concerns or challenges also, because when a TCS goes and implements a specific solution, or Infosys does, there is a backing of Infosys and TCS behind that solution. Now, if you look at any DPI, it does not have one particularly organization like an SAP and Oracle backing it. In such case, where would that trust element come from? And that is where we are saying that there's no one entity, but there are multiple entities which are adopting and further improving upon that, providing their own flavor, and then taking it to the market. So this is something which has made it open for multiple implementation providers to go and take it to multiple customers, not only in the country, but across the globe. So African countries have already started adopting. I recall one of my colleagues in some time back saying that they have taken MOSEP to Morocco. There's a discussion going on with Kenya. There's that health opportunity which is happening in Mozambique. So these countries are looking up to India, saying that if you have solved something at population scale, now this is something which we now can put our trust in. It's just that now, how do we bring in the larger ecosystem? So be it in hyperscalers like an Oracle or in Microsoft or Azure or GCP, which provides that backend support, and then those SIs who can actually go and convert that or adopt it to the country's context. So that is something that's an opportunity for the larger world to take and learn from these ecosystems.
Fantastic. And Rama ma'am, from a DPI perspective, what are some of the exciting opportunities on the horizon and challenges? Of course, Bridge talked about some challenges and what are the different opportunities, and how is it enabling inclusion from a citizen perspective, be it the financial inclusion, education inclusion, healthcare, etc., or even creating job? How do you see that happening, Rama ma'am?
Yeah, in fact, I'm glad that you have asked this question, because just a couple of weeks back, we have launched our own DPI in the agri sector, which is the digital, we call it as ADEX, Agriculture Data Exchange Platform. The DPI, which is open source, open standards, and can be used by anyone. In fact, we have built this only for the agriculture sector right now, but it can be, later adopted for any sector, healthcare, education, and so on. And the reason that we have taken up this ADEX platform, as all of you might know, data is now the new oil. We have heard all those buzzwords, but nobody's actually doing anything in that front. So we took up this challenge and said, because we work with many startups, in different sectors, including agriculture. So when we started working with these startups, we realized that, they're really going through a lot of, issues, challenges in terms of accessing the data. That's when we thought, really, we need to actually do something. And in fact, along with the Agriculture Data Exchange Platform, we also actually launched, just give me a second. Today, I'm facing all challenges.
No worries, please go ahead. Yeah.
Sometimes it happens, yeah. I was saying, we have built it along with this Agriculture Data Exchange Platform. We have also launched what you call, agriculture data management policy, because we started working on this for almost a year or so. As you all know, we don't have recently both the houses of the parliament have actually approved a digital data protection law, but before that we didn't had any kind of law. So we actually worked on this, and we launched this agriculture data framework along with the exchange platform, which is a DPI again. Well, along with this DPI, we also, a couple of months back, we worked on a digital public good, again in agriculture. It's again OpenAI, open data, open source, it's in partnership with UNDP. It's called DICRA, Data and Climate Resilient Agriculture. So the advantage, the benefits and the opportunities that you asked me, we just implemented that for one state of Telangana. Now it's replicated in about, I think, 5 states within a very short span of time. So it saves resources, it saves time. Those are the benefits that you are looking at. And if you are asking me opportunities, recently there was an article from Harvard which said digital ID alone can, in fact, unlock about 3 to 13% of GDP from these DPIs, So that's the scale that we are looking at. And in terms of challenges, if you ask me, one of the biggest challenges that I see is, digital divide that is existing right now. Could be across socioeconomic, genders, and maybe geographical locations, so on. Maybe we need to actually implement many, initiatives that build this or reduce this digital divide is one of the biggest challenges. The second challenge is, again, funding for such, DPI. It's another barrier. But of course, this, Government of India itself has funded a couple of, just like DPIs like UPI, Aadhar, and so is this Telangana government has recently funded this agriculture data exchange platform, but still it's one of the biggest, barrier. The third one, DPIs, as the earlier speaker has mentioned, the multiple building blocks, and these are contributed by different stakeholders. So coordination across multiple parties is required. No single player, can provide a perfect solution for this. So that's another big challenge. Of course, we need to work around to, overcome these challenges. But the way to go, I think, is towards moving towards DPIs and DPGs.
Fantastic, ma'am. Thank you so much. But as we keep digitizing, as we keep moving data to the digital platform, we'll also jump upon or start facing cybersecurity challenges, right? With increasing dependency on data and technology, robust government practices are a must now. What are some of the prominent steps that government and PSUs are taking to ensure effective data protection? CK Prasad sir, if you could help us here. And what are some of the best practices being implemented? And how are the different stakeholders, be it government, industry, or legal community, collaborating to ensure a zero trust architecture?
Cybersecurity is extremely important as we continue to digitize various applications and the processes. What we did is basically we try to build the cybersecurity in the design of our infrastructure itself while doing that, so that we don't have to really put because there are today so many solutions on the security front for different aspects of, let us say, whether it is identity access management or it is the firewall for network protection and things like that. So what we did is we did something called network segmentation within the infrastructure itself, where we have separated the web tier with the app tier and the database tier, micro segmentation, what we call it actually. And this micro segmentation brings a lot of layers of security, because you can also have a virtual, for east-west traffic, you can have virtual firewall, distributed firewall. You can have a different security policies inbuilt into that. So, and all managed through a orchestration layer. So we basically deployed something micro segmentation right in the beginning when we deployed our cloud infrastructure. So that was one aspect of it. Second thing was, of course, during the COVID time, and people are working from their homes and all, and endpoints, using different type of endpoints. Endpoint security become extremely important. So we had deployed EDR and XDR and managed through our the central location, central control Apex server, which was there, through which you can push the policies and things like that. And we also deployed the SOC, Security Operations Center, where all these different security controls, the different applications, the different, we had an inventory of that and common database, which we can basically see that which of the product requires patches, and timely we can patch them, and whether it is a OS patch or security patch. So patch management was thing which we automated, and we used Ansible automation platform, which is open source platform across the enterprise. In addition to that, we had to man this thing for automation. One is training the people, which we're talking about, the skill gap and stuff like that. So we find that in the cybersecurity space, there's a huge shortage of people with the right skills, and we try to basically build by the capability or capacity by training them, upskilling them, and giving them new skills. And also with the partners who are working, who are basically providing resources for the SOC, we took resources from them as well. And within a couple of years, we had a hybrid team, and then now we are able to do it on our own. So cybersecurity is with the ever-evolving threat landscape and sophisticated attacks becoming more and more common. It is something which is a practice has to be continuous, where basically it is not just one-time solution. You put it something, buy some software tools, some security tools, and deploy it, and then you're okay with it. It is, you have to follow all the ISO processes, the best practices, and we have to keep learning as we see new threats emerging. And a lot of threats are by the state actors actually, where the countries are basically funding them, and then they are So they're well funded. And there's a lot of collaboration happening in that space, bad actors. And so similar collaboration required by the enterprises also. And what we have done is we have across different enterprises, like we have a CIO club, we have a CISO, elite CISO group and all, in which we share a lot of knowledge. We do like sessions every week on new threats or new basically solutions which are there. And it is a continuous learning process for us as well. So I think the ecosystem for startups on cybersecurity also has to evolve, like what has happened in Israel, and other countries also are working towards that. And we have also to, I think, like T-Hub in Telangana, which is for the startups and all ecosystem. I think that type of more and more infrastructure the government should push in various states, so that, and across the states they should collaborate, across countries we should collaborate. So that is something which is extremely important, because collaboration is a key here, because of what is happening in the dark web, actually listening to them and then devising a strategy to basically thwart those type of zero-day attacks and things like that is extremely important. And coming to ZTNA, definitely zero trust is a framework. Basically, it's something which we are trying to adopt with, like we have already implemented multi-factor authentication. We have this identity and access management, where we have like even going for IP, let us say the DNS, we have implemented DNS security, for example, DNSSEC. So security has to, for example, for DDoS or attacks, for DOS attack, DDoS attacks. So we have partnered with some of the service providers who support us in volumetric DDoS. Then application-specific DDoS is there. Then we have WAF for web application. Those OWASP top 10 threat. So there are so many type of attacks which is possible on the systems. And hardening and implementing security control, auditing regularly, doing VAPT, and all these things becomes a mainstream activity, which earlier it was sidelined. Earlier people thought, okay, security we can see later. First, let us deploy the services applications, and then we can do that. So that is no longer true. So the shift of security to the left is extremely important. That is right in the beginning of the design stage itself, the security should be brought in. So that is my take.
Sure, CK, so it's a continuous learning and continuous effort is what really is all about. So and Ganesha, since you have NSCIT has been one of the very important players in financial sector. Security would also be a very important aspect that you would always be. So what are the prominent steps that you as an organization have been taken, and what are the best practices and collaboration to ensure zero trust? Is there any that you wanted to share?
Yeah, no, sure. Thanks, Keshri. So I think, so to begin with, NSCIT has a cybersecurity services portfolio, and we do a lot of work in that space. And CKP sir has given a very good perspective across the areas of what is critical and imperative. So fundamentally, there are a few things, right? And first is, if you have anything of value in your organization, then you are a potential target, fundamentally, right? It is as simple as that. So, gone is that world where, people thought, I'm still far away from getting an attack because, there are many others to attack. Because fundamentally, if you have anything of value, which you believe there is value, and if, there is an acceptance of value within your system of what you render to your clients or your stakeholders, then there is, of course, a possibility that you will be a target for a security threat, right? That's number one. Number two, if you just look at the recent past, right, in the last few years, I mean, I think November last year, you had AIMS come down with a ransomware. These are all in the public domain, right? You had, I think for a few days, the whole systems had come down, and basically the medical records of, patients could not be accessed, and everything was being done manual, right? Fundamentally, they took a few days to come out of that issue, right? If you look at April this year, you had 6 of the Indian airports coming down with a DDoS attack, right, where there was a disruption of service because fundamentally, as Prasad sir was saying, what it does is basically all your normal services are disrupted by overloading them with stuff that is not relevant, and therefore you basically render services void. So that happened, and it took about 8-9 hours to come out of that attack. If you look at another case, and I'm just giving you a flavor of the different attacks that happened, right? So if you look at an entity like Applied Material, which is basically a semiconductor company, there was a supply chain attack for one of their contracting entities in the value chain. So the fundamental reality is that you just cannot be limiting yourself with securing your own setup, but the entire ecosystem that contributes to your overall end state is also equally required to be secure, right? So basically, the weakest link in the chain can be an access point for a vulnerability attack fundamentally, right? So those are the nature of the supply chain. We have, there was a file management software company called MoveIt, which was being used globally by many enterprises, and basically there was an inherent Trojan malware sitting inside that entity, and that became kind of rampant and proliferated across multiple enterprises. So today, unfortunately, the reality is there are multiple vulnerability points. So as was being rightly stated, you have to consciously evaluate and ensure that you're fortifying yourself, because the nature of threats are evolving rapidly. I think that's very extremely important. As the word suggests, zero trust architecture is all about, you have to kind of treat everything with caution and suspicion, right? You have to look at every component of the value chain, be it your digital infrastructure, be it your supply chain ecosystem, be it as was again mentioned, there are reports that suggest that a lot of threats are fundamentally a function of many employees within an organization. So fundamentally, there is a whole aspect of awareness that is very important today. You click on the wrong link and you expose your organization to potential vulnerability. So, in addition to, aspects of intent and malicious intent, there is also significant awareness that is required to be kind of constantly, brought up to scale, because you can't have your employees compromise the sanctity of your system. So I think all of these put together, and I know, KPMG, I know, has come out with a CEO study where, if you look at the top 5 concerns of CEO, security is always featuring in the top 5 for the last few years in succession. So I think there are various aspects, and and I think a good perspective was given by CKP sir in terms of all the interventions. But this is an ongoing aspect, right? You can't just sit pretty, and you have to constantly benchmark. We as an organization do a lot of red teaming exercises, because as I mentioned, one dimension of what we do is conduct digital examinations for multiple entities. So the veracity of the examinations, to ensure that they don't get compromised, all these are extremely critical, and you always have to be one step ahead. So I think there are, I would summarize it this way. I think awareness is extremely important. You should realize that you can at any point in time be a potential target, and you have to constantly, basically look at basic hygiene of encryption in steady state, and encryption of data and movement and all of that. So I think whole set of things that come together to ensure that you look at a zero trust policy. And I think that is what's happening today, and more organizations are getting very conscious.
Thank you, Ganesh sir. So basically, validate and verify, and then trust, and then keep auditing.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah, that's zero trust. But basically, what has I'll move to the next question, and
Keshri, I just want to add something here before you
yes,
move
ma'am.
on.
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Prasad there was mentioning that while we have T-Hub for startups, we need something for cybersecurity startups. So just want to, share this information that our government, Telangana, has set up a center of excellence in cybersecurity. Almost, it's about 4 years back. Unfortunately, COVID has come. Somehow we could not, scale it up that fast. But we have a center of excellence that is that actually focuses only on cybersecurity startups. Now they're actually incubating around 40 startups. So if anything is required in this area, Prasad Garu can always, approach us. Just wanted to share this information.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. So Bridge, moving to the next point, generative AI has shown lots of promise. Would you want to touch upon its applicability in government context specifically? And as the government is working on AI strategy for India, what are the risks that they should be considering in the generative AI policy? There also has been concerns regarding risk in generative AI. Can you also share your views around these?
Yeah, sure, Keshri. And this is again an exciting field, and we've been hearing about this AI being there, for quite some time. Even when I was in college, we heard about, this AI is coming, taking jobs away, or gonna automate everything. And last 20 years, we didn't have much to show, for that. Now, with coming of this entire transformers and the LLMs, I mean, things have changed. For the first time, we have seen AI in realm of everybody's, hands. We are working using ChatGPT almost every day. Our kids are using it all the more. So one, the applicability is huge because somewhere we've seen what it does and what it does very effectively is to, one, contextualize a lot of data which is, there within the organization, and to be able, and they have been trained based on a vast amount of data, and hence this entire ability to contextualize data, creating those sentences, creating those summaries has become relatively much easier, and which is where it has shown the most of it, applicability. But having said that, this entire usage about, even in the language technologies, and some of it we have seen being put to great use within country also. And I've been in certain workshop of Bhashni, and we have seen that how these models are coming together. And this has been the challenge within the country because we are a very diverse country and which speak multiple languages, and hence something what we create in one language, it gets repeated across multiple states, and hence a wastage of resources. Now with this Gen AI coming in, this entire language translation is something which has seen a lot of movement in forward direction. So now one obvious use case becomes that, okay, a lot of information is coming, say in a contact centers. We have got contact centers, being used across every state. Now, how do I ensure that whatever is being spoken can quickly be converted, into a specific, say, structured language, and then relative resources get fetched and then go and disseminate. That's again a great use case. But what we have seen, a lot of promise is that it takes away this entire, exercise of having a laptop or having a machine through which you have to provide an input. Now you can provide input through voice.
Yeah.
So the use cases that we have seen in farming, and that's a pretty famous one, that okay, you can actually go and ask for inputs that, okay, if I'm sowing this particular crop, can you please tell me what should I do next? And then based on the information already available with ICAR and multiple agencies, it comes and tells you. And it also brings in context, the information around, your climatic zones, the weather, in the recent terms, what is available in terms of the input that needs to go in, where the finances are available. Now, one platform which brings all of it together within a very short span of time and tell you in your own language. Now, that's the power which is gonna push a lot of things. And NAM has been working, in this space where a data exchange is getting created, where more data can be fetched from multiple sources and then been given as an input to the user. And that's a great great power. But again, interestingly, what the Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. So that's a challenge also, because the very thing is that this has been trained, and if I look at say a ChatGPT based model, it has been trained on data sets which we are not much aware of. So there's a lot of data which has been there in the internet, and it has used all of this data to create those models. Now we don't yet know how much it was a proprietary data, how much was it personal data of people which has actually got on the internet. And basis this, the entire risk around data privacy, the intellectual property, that I have created something and then you can just provide a prompt and then that thing changes and that becomes my copyright, is something which would be a new type of challenge, and we have to figure out how do we go and navigate those. We have already seen EU coming up with its own act around AI, and they have talked about unacceptable usage or a high risk usage or a limited usage. So somewhere in our country as well, we still, while we have got a data protection bill which is there, now how would it actually get aligned to the Gen AI related risk? That is something which we are yet to see. But then the entire idea around the factual accuracy of it, around the discrimination part of it, because again, these data sets have been there. It's not that we have created new data sets for training. So if there's a bias which was already there, there was a some kind of a discrimination which was already there, all of this has already been built in what is the output that you're receiving. So that's a risk that we need to, and importantly, there has to be a very clear communication that what is actually you are consuming, whether it has got generated out of a specific text or a specific repository, or it has been generated from an AI. Because there's a lot of hallucination that also comes because of this, because we don't know. It may be telling that this is what the answer is. It may not be the answer. So as long as I'm aware that, okay, fine, this is an algorithm which has given me this answer, I would be able to take, informed choices. So if a doctor says that, okay, fine, for these kind of symptoms that you're showing, this is the kind of medication that you should take. As long as somebody tells that, okay, fine, it's a AI model which is recommending, I would know which one I need to get, again, get rechecked, or what is something which I can still go and use. Same is there for the legal interpretation. So there are a lot of areas where this is getting used. Now, how do we actually ensure that people make informed choices? That's an important one. And then obviously there are ethical risks,
Sure.
Because while it does a lot of good things, it can also say create malwares. It can create codes, which people are using very, very conveniently, but can also create malwares. It can create, good messages that you go and send to your colleagues and friends, but it can also create phishing messages.
Yeah.
So, how do we ensure that such outputs, can be blocked, and it's then a larger responsibility of the community. That's where, it's going to go. And then there are obviously unintended harms. So while our kids were reading from school textbooks, suddenly they are now getting used to ChatGPT. Now, does it actually impact their faculty to think? We do not know yet. There's no per se has been a scientific proof around it, but there could be some. And that's something, other things that we may have to take into consideration as we start on this journey.
Sure. Thanks, Bridge. We'll move on to the last question, and I'll need help from you to start with, Rama ma'am. Is what, according to you, are the top 2 strategic priorities for India to further expand our digital leadership in the decade? Ma'am, you're on mute. If you could unmute,
Well, I would actually mention 3 strategic requirements. Well, before I do that, I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this. While we are referring this as decade, right? But McKinsey partner, Mr. Bob Stapnell, what he said was, this is not just India's decade, but it's India's century. And he sort of, listed out 3 ingredients. Of course, one is manufacturing, supply chain, and third one is digital. India leapfrogging on digital scale is what he said. To really make this as India's century, in my view, 3 important strategic things are required. One is innovation, using emerging technologies that solve population scale projects, in India. The second one is data and policy enablement, that Government of India is doing, as well as individual states are also doing it. And the third one is, as many of the earliest panelists have spoken about, is building a talent pool, And in fact, he also mentions about, talent pool from India. Like, India would actually produce around 30% of the talent, for the world. So these are 3, areas that I think we should work on. One is, again, I repeat, innovation, using emerging technologies, data and policy enablement, and third is building a talent pool.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. Ganesh sir, any inputs that you would want to share?
No, I think Rama ma'am has already rightly articulated some very critical areas, and I'll probably chime in with two more points, which I know was the flavor in the conversation before this. One is inclusion, right? We have to ensure that every citizen of India is touched by all these initiatives, all these programs, and I think there was a point which was earlier made. The societal divide has to eventually, that chasm has to come down, right? So fundamentally, that's when we will see success. And second is collaboration, right? Because you don't need to reinvent everything. And I think there was a great example quoted by Rama ma'am where there is already a template available that can be replicated. So I think as we look at our frugal resources as a country, you don't need to redo this over and over within different entities. I think as we develop a framework to leverage and collaborate, and that is the global mantra. Frankly, you can't do it all, and you will never be able to do it all the best way, right? So we all will have to start learning to collaborate, and as we include people into this framework and collaborate more, I think we will find ourselves getting to the end state that we want to get to. So those are my two quick thoughts.
Thank you so much. I think this is one of the best hours that I have spent in few last months, and lots of knowledge that I've really gathered from all of you. And thank you so much. And Diksha, back to you for the last minute. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. Fantastic discussion. Thanks to all of you for taking the time out and also sharing these very important insights. I'll be uploading this video on the YouTube channels that, as I mentioned, I'll share the link with you. And thanks to the audience, thanks to the leaders. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you
Thanks
all.
a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot.